Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Texas Democrat, and Congressman Adam Kinzinger, an Illinois Republican. Gentlemen, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Congressman Cuellar, President Obama asked the American people to call their congressman, and we actually understand some congressional websites crashed last night. We're hearing actually that the server for the House is still down. I'm wondering what you heard from your constituents.
Well, you know, we certainly are starting to hear from our constituents to make sure that we don't have a default. We have to find a solution in a bipartisan way, and I know that there's two competing interests here, but I'm hoping that at the end of the day, you know, before August 2nd, that we get together and work something out.
And obviously, Congressman Kinzinger, if people want to compromise a solution, a number of your colleagues have already come out and they said they're not going to support John Boehner's plan. So I'm wondering if you will.
Well, look, I'll let every one of my colleagues speak for themselves. I'll tell you this. This really just came out last night. I don't want to commit yet without really going through the bill and getting the details of it. But I'll say, look, once again, we've taken a leadership role in trying to find some kind of compromise, some area where we can come together. I think it's important to remember the grand compromise when we talk about that. From a Republican perspective, we really feel like we are, coming to the table and saying we understand that we've put ourselves in a trajectory to blow through the debt limit, so we're willing to pay for that. But at the same time, please come to the table with some spending. And that's where we're at. So it's going to be an interesting few days here. But
budget the deal breaker for you, and where are you willing to compromise?
No, I'm not going to say it's a deal breaker. Look, as I'm saying, from a compromise perspective, and it's interesting, over the last few years I didn't hear a lot of people talk about compromise with health care and things like that, but I'm willing to compromise by talking about the fact that, look, we do have to raise the debt ceiling. We do have to look at ultimately how to pay these bills, but at the same time, we want partners to come in and say, hey, here's how we're going to significantly reduce the size of federal government, reduce spending, and get ourselves on a healthy fiscal trajectory, which Republicans and Democrats both strongly agree on.
Well, let me play for you both what Dick Durbin had to say this morning about specifically revenue, which the president is still looking for. Take a listen.
They're afraid because they signed some tax pledge to some fellow here in Washington that if they somehow even talk about revenue, they're going to end up with a primary fight and lose. They don't want to face that.
He's talking about you among other people, I think, Congressman Kinzinger. Are you saying that you'd be willing to let the U.S. default rather than raise taxes on, as the president said last night, hedge fund managers and CEOs flying their corporate jets?
No, see, that's a false choice. To say we're either going to default or we have to raise taxes is a false choice. I think we can prevent default, A, by cutting spending and getting to something that I think both sides can agree on. Neither of us want default. We want an answer. We want a bipartisan solution. And it seems like reducing the size of federal government, cutting spending is where we're going to be. Look, the House budget eliminated all the loopholes that we're talking about, but then it bring the overall corporate tax rate down to put us in line and be competitive in the rest of the world. That's the kind of simplification we need to get people back to work. We have a huge deficit because people are receiving tax benefits when they really want to be taxpayers and have jobs in this economy.
Well, Congressman Cuellar, let me ask you about going back to jobs, because that's where this all resonates for the American people. There's a new poll that shows huge numbers of people think government leaders are failing them. 52% disapprove of how the president is handling job creation. 65% unhappy with the way Republicans are handling it. Are you worried at all, Congressman, that people watched both of those speeches last night and what they came away with was, wow, Washington is even more dysfunctional than I thought?
You know, the American people spoke this last November and certainly going to speak again this next election. And I think what people are not voting for, they're not voting for dysfunctional government. They want us to sit down and work together. The REAP plan, for example, has $1.2 trillion of cuts that Speaker Boehner agreed to before he walked out on Friday. So there are some areas, you know, I certainly support Adam, and, you know, I want to see our corporate rates go down, close some of the loopholes to make sure that, you know, our companies are competitive with other companies across the world. You know, there's really a lot of areas that we can find common ground. We just got to sit down and, instead of going out to competing areas, maybe at one time we'll have a conference committee, which we haven't had a conference committee between the House and the Senate, and find the common ground and work this out before August 2nd.
Congressman Henry Cuellar and Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you, gentlemen, so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
First, it was Saturday, mail delivery. Now your local